friends, Krista here. Thanks for stopping by Books and Jams. I am here today to talk about all the books that I read in the month of October. I did do a mid-month wrap-up a couple weeks ago where I talked about 6 or 7 of these, but to be honest, I did not go back and look at which ones I already talked about, so I remember some of them, but I am still going to talk about all of them briefly. And instead of going chronologically, I've kind of clumped them into some different sections. So we're going to start and just dive right in because I have 12 books. Some of them I've already talked about, so I won't go into too much detail. I will link that mid-month wrap-up down in the description box below if you want to go check that out. But the first section I'm going to talk about is thrillers, like mystery thrillers, because I read 5 of them this month. Technically 6 if we're counting mysteries, but one of those mysteries was definitely more of a cozy feel to it. Sorry, just kicked my stand. So I read 5 thrillers this month. They were, very quickly, I think the 3 I've already talked about were Sometimes I Lie by Alice Feeney. This was for my Goodreads read-along group. This one broke my brain, and I remember talking about this one. It was crazy. Twist, twist, twist. I could not figure it out. And at the end, I was so frustrated. Definitely unlikable characters. The more I thought about this, I think I originally gave this a 4-star, but the more I thought about it, I feel like it's a 3-star just because I just feel frustrated when I think about it. Same with this one. I think I originally gave this 4 stars, but it's probably more like a 3-star because I already am forgetting some, but that's The Death of Mrs. Westaway by Ruth Ware. This was young girl, down on her luck, has nobody in the world, learns that she has an inheritance, and decides to try to pull the wool over the eyes of the family and accept the inheritance, even though she doesn't think that it belongs to her. This also feels more like a 3-star than a 4-star now that I'm removed from reading it. The Guest List by Lucy Foley. Wedding party on a stormy island off the coast of Ireland. Also very unlikable characters. Somebody dies and there are multiple potential suspects. I think I gave it 4 stars originally. I feel like it's a 3-star. Actually, now that I think about it, Sometimes I Lie is probably 4-star because it was just so trippy. But these two, I'm moving down from 4 to 3. Should I do that? I don't know. Regardless, I've already talked about those. Then I read 2 more thrillers at the end of the month. I did pick up my library book of Malorie by Josh Malerman. This is a sequel to Bird Box. And to be honest, it was a little bit disappointing. The intensity and creepiness factor of Bird Box just wasn't here in this one. So in Bird Box, it's our world, but then this creature starts coming, and it's sort of like a pandemic because whenever people lay eyes on this creature, either through a mirror or through a glass or whatever, or just see it straight out, they lose their ever-loving minds. They hurt other people and then ultimately kill themselves. So that's the scene. And in Bird Box, Malorie is a woman who finds a safe house, lives there for a while, and then with 2 children tries to escape to another safer place. And it's so intense and so creepy. And I loved it. In this one, it's like 10 years later, and we're more like survival story. Like, how do you survive in this world where you can't go outside without wearing a blindfold because these creatures are even more in abundance than they were in the first one. And so we learn about how Malorie lives with these 2 kids who are now teenagers, and they are teenagers. The boy in particular is incredibly angsty and wants to push against everything that Malorie, all of the rules that she set up. And that's very typical teenager behavior. But it was definitely more like a mother-son relationship focus. And just the intensity that was there at the beginning wasn't there in this one. There were some cool aspects of it that I'm not going to talk about because I don't want to spoil it. But just know that the focus of the book was quite different. And it was good, but I don't feel like, yeah, that fear, that like fun kind of fear that's in the first one wasn't a part of this one. So I forget what I rated it. 3, 4, 3? One of those. However, I did give a thriller 5 stars this month, and it was spectacular. I read this together with Kelly from Cozy Reader Kelly and Rebecca from the Colorful Book Nester. Something like that. I will link both of their channels down below. That was The Broken Girls by Simone St. James. This book was awesome. I don't think I've ever read a ghost story for adults. I don't believe in ghosts, and so I just don't read a lot of ghost stories. I don't read a lot of this type of book in general anyways. So I don't read a lot of books that have ghosts in it. And this one does. And it was really fun to talk with Kelly and Rebecca about the ghost and what was the purpose of it. And so we have two timelines. In the present day timeline, we follow Fiona, who has lost her sister 20 years before. Her sister was murdered and showed up her body was found on the grounds of Idlewild, which is a closed boarding school for girls, troubled girls. And Fiona just cannot get past the death of her sister, even though her killer is behind bars. She still feels like there's untold aspects of the mystery of it. And did he really do it? There are still questions that she has, and she just cannot let it go. So we follow Fiona through this process of her trying to figure things out, and the ghost that lives at Idlewild. And then we also have a timeline 50 years in the past of 4 roommates at Idlewild. And we get to know each of their stories and their troubled past. Let me tell you, this title is so appropriate for this book. Each of the women in this book have experienced some trauma or grief or some kind of situation that really makes them broken. And how they handle that brokenness is very much a part of this book. I love how Simone St. James made me care about each of the different women in particular, not so much the men in the book, but that's okay. It's called The Broken Girls, right? Especially with the 4 roommates, we just have like layer upon layer upon layer of story, but running through it is this ghost that lives at Idlewild, and the little bits of intensity or fear that come along with those moments in the book were so much fun. It did not cross the line into like throw the book in the freezer because it's too scary. It didn't get too scary for me. I just think that she is a spectacular writer. Definitely gave this 5 stars. I loved how it all came to a head. I loved that it didn't feel like everything was tied up in a pretty bow, and yet all of my questions were answered. It didn't feel convenient. It felt appropriate. The ending I'm talking about. Yeah, I just really liked this one, and absolutely plan on picking up more books by Simone St. James. This was spectacular. Yay for a 5-star thriller. I don't know, but that might be my first. I then have 2 books that I want to talk about for Victober. I have always hoped to participate in Victober, but never really have before. And then this year I did it. I read 2 books, and look, one of them's a chunker. I buddy read Agnes Grey by Anne Bronte, and I think I already talked about this. I read this with Berna and Emily from Novelle Novels. Berna's Bookish Adventures and Emily from Novelle Novels. Loved this book. Agnes Grey is a wonderful character. I could relate to her. She was a little bit of a pushover at times, and there was a little bit of pacing issues, but ultimately I really did enjoy reading this. And then the other book I read for Victober is Wives and Daughters, and I finished this one. I did a combo of like reading and listening to this one, and it worked so well for me. I love Elizabeth Gaskell, and I love this book. I do love North and South, and I still think I liked North and South a little bit better, but I do love Molly Gibson, who is the main protagonist in this book. We follow Molly and her father, who is a doctor, in their small town. The mom had passed away years before, so it's just Molly and her dad, and they have a very close relationship. As Molly starts to get older, her dad is a little protective. When some of his interns start to have eyes for her, and he sends her to family friend. We just kind of follow this family, Molly and her father. The dad does eventually get remarried, and she, his new wife, has a daughter. And so that's the wife and the 2 daughters, and we just follow them through all of their relationships and issues, and I found it very readable and compelling. I just loved it. I was frustrated for Molly. Molly is a 9 girl. She is a 9 on the Enneagram, for sure. Just wants everybody to get along, wants everybody to be at peace around her, does what she can for others, even to the detriment of her own desires. She's a cinnamon roll of a girl. I just absolutely love her. Usually we use cinnamon roll for like the guys, right? But she is a little cinnamon roll girl. She's not a little girl all the way through, but I just had such affection for her. So one thing to note about Wives and Daughters is that Elizabeth Gaskell passed away before this book is wrapped up in its pretty bow. However, I was told that I will be okay with that, and I was. And you can absolutely see the future and where it's gonna go. And it gets to a point that is okay at the end of this one. I did love the adaptation. I watched the adaptation right after finishing this book. The BBC, I think, did it, like a 4-part miniseries adaptation. I think it was the BBC. I don't know. It was so good. And they kind of push the ending a little bit farther and just give you that one extra scene that puts the frosting on the cake. But I do really love this book, and I need to read more of Elizabeth Gaskell's works. There's a couple more that I need to read. I DNF'd Cranford last year during Victober. I need to pick it back up again. I know it's a little quieter maybe than North and South and Wives and Daughters. I do really like Elizabeth Gaskell's writing, and so I do want to pick that one back up. And there's a couple others as well. So yay for participating in Victober this year. I did it. I did have 2 rereads last month, and they are part of a trilogy, and I read A Voice in the Wind and An Echo in the Darkness. I think I already talked about Voice in the Wind in the first part, and I did read the sequel, An Echo in the Darkness, in which we continue the storylines that are started in this one. So I'm not going to talk about this one, but this does take place in the 1st century in Rome and Ephesus, which was kind of cool because I went to Ephesus last summer, like 2019 summer. So it was very cool to like recognize, not really recognize, but to kind of be like, I was there, I know those marble streets, and yeah. So that was fun. 1st century Roman Empire was pretty brutal, very much focused on bringing whatever brings pleasure, doing whatever I want to make myself have pleasure. So there's a lot of drunkenness and orgies and gladiator games and watching people get killed for sport, and that definitely all plays a very active part in this. We particularly follow the Valerian family, so Marcus and his sister Julia and their parents are big characters in both of these books, and the changes that they make, and as Marcus comes to a point where he realizes maybe that lifestyle isn't the best, and where Julia just dives in full force into that lifestyle and the consequences of their decisions. This one, A Voice in the Wind, is very action-packed, and the plot moves along at quite a clip. This one, the sequel, is much more introspective. There's a lot more faith journey in this one. There's a lot more just thinking about life and the meaning of life, and recognizing the consequences, and there is a huge cliffhanger at the end of this one that leads you into this one. So I feel like this is a must read if you're going to pick up this trilogy, but just know that this is a much quieter book. It does go places, but it is much quieter and much more introspective than the first one. So that, and a lot more spiritual, like a lot more focus on faith in this one. One character in particular goes on kind of like a journey to Jerusalem and Judea, and like to find God, kind of like a straight out pilgrimage, basically. I won't say more than that, but this one has a lot more faith focus. It's in here. There are definitely some characters in here that are very focused on their faith and growing in their faith, but this one dives into that wholeheartedly. So if you don't prefer Christian fiction that may get a little preachy, for lack of a better word, this one might get on your nerves because it does go there. I loved it, however. So I would say I gave A Voice in the Wind 4 stars, and I gave An Echo in the Darkness 3 stars. I think the first time I read them, I gave them both 5 stars. Now just having read so many more books, I really love this trilogy, but it didn't blow me away maybe as much as it had the first couple times that I read it. This is not my second time, it's like my third or fourth time reading it. But it was fun to reread. It's been a long time since I've reread anything. The last category of books that I'm going to talk about, I have 4 here. Well, 1 I've already talked about. 2 I've already talked about. They're like the cozy, comfort, quick, like romance-focused reads. So I've already talked about The Bookshop on the Corner by Jenny Colgan. Love, love, love. This girl loses her job at a library, moves to Scotland, buys a van, and starts a mobile bookshop. Along the way, meets some characters and kind of finds a new home. Loved this story so much. Need to read more from Jenny Colgan. I also talked about The Secret Book and Scone Society by Ellery Adams. Really enjoyed that. Kind of more of a cozy-ish mystery, and really would love to dive into more in that series. I believe there's a few of them out. Then, later on in October, I picked up The Simplicity of Cider by Amy E. Reichert because I needed a book for my Fall Into Reading Challenge bingo board that takes place in the fall. So this one definitely is all about apples and apple picking and cider, and so I grabbed this one. I didn't love this one. I found it very tropey, for lack of a better word, but I found the romance slightly cheesy. However, the main girl is tall and like big bone. She's not a tiny girl, and I love, love, love that. She kind of is closed off to romance. She and her father run in the orchard, and she is very good at making cider and like making all different kinds of cider. It's actually kind of cool because she sees colors. She sees flavors as colors, so she can match the flavors with the colors and like knows how to make a cider and which apples to use and add specific juices to make specific ciders that match with foods and feelings. And that I thought was a very cool aspect of this. Yeah, almost like a wine, like a sommelier, like who can pair wine so well with certain foods. She definitely has that ability with cider. There's a little bit of family drama. There's a brother. She has a brother who really doesn't want anything to do with the orchard anymore, and it's losing money, and should they sell, should they keep it? And then there is a romance that was very much of a fast-paced romance. It was cute though, and it was cozy, and I didn't mind it. So I think I ended up giving it 3 stars, but it wasn't like rocking my socks off or anything like that. And finally, at the very end of the month, I squeezed in one last read, which is Well Played by Jen DeLuca. This is a sequel to Well Met, and both take place, the main setting is this Renaissance fair. Well Met is most definitely all focused on the Renaissance fair, and then this one follows Stacy, who's one of the characters that we meet in the first one, and her kind of romance that springs from the Renaissance fair. However, this one doesn't take place, the whole book is not at the Renaissance fair. The relationship in this one takes place a lot through emails and texts throughout the year outside of the Renaissance fair. And then, so it like starts at the Renaissance fair and ends at the Renaissance fair, but the main part of the relationship happens through emails and texts. This girl feels kind of stuck. Stacy feels kind of stuck in her small town. She came back. She left right after college, but came back because of her mom's illness. But her mom seems to be better, and she just can't seem to leave. I did find it cute. I didn't find the romance as sparks flying as the first one. It was much more quiet. I'm not going to talk too much about the whole romance and the email thing because I feel like reading the summary gives something away that I felt was a little bit spoilery. So I don't want to share all of that. Just know that I didn't like this one as much as Well Met. It was cute. There were parts of it that I really liked, but I didn't find it as buzzy and crisp and fun as the first one. It was just like, it was okay. 3 stars? But I feel like I like 3 stars. I don't want to give it 2 stars, but maybe it is a 2-star. I hate reading. I hate reading books. Yeah, it was okay. It was fun. It was quick. I definitely liked the first one better. So there you have it. 13 books read in a month is really good. And 5 of them were thrillers. 6 of them were mystery thrillers. 2 Victober. I really feel like I had a great reading month. Oh, I'm gonna try to get them now. So I have all here except the one I listened to, but I didn't get out from the library. Are they all in? They're all in. Yes. So there you have it. These are all the books that I read in the month of October. I love it. I think that was a good month. Lots of thrillers. Crazy. I probably won't read another one for quite a while. Let's just be honest. It's not my go-to at all. So that's it. I would love to chat with you about these books that I talked about or anything else. What was your favorite read from the month of October? Have you started off November on a good note? I know it's kind of a crazy week for everyone right now. Lots of emotion, lots of thoughts flying, lots of uncertainty, which will not be so uncertain, but things might not calm down. But that's okay. I am here to love books with you and to share some positivity in our world. So I just hope that you are having a great week. My heart goes out to you. I am thinking of you. I love chatting with you down in the comments. Let's chat around about anything that you need to chat about down there. I'm here for you. With that said, give this video a big thumbs up if you liked it, subscribe if you haven't already, and I will be talking to you in another video very soon. Bye.